We'll wait just a couple more minutes to see if a couple more commissioners should arrive. I know one absent was already communicated to me, so we'll start shortly. Thank you. And good afternoon. My name is Chair Ritter, and I would like to start the Parks and Recreation Commission meeting for June. So we'll go ahead and commence the call to order at 5:32. Could we start with a roll call, please?
Yes. Let the record show we have 4 commissioners present with Commissioners Kamarat and Commissioner Quinn absent. Correction, 5 commissioners are present with Commissioners Kamarat and Quinn absent.
Thank you. If all who have the ability to stand would please stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. Be seated. So moving on to special presentations and proclamations, we have one special presentation today. Manager Norgard.
Actually, this is on the agenda. It's
I'm sorry.
A.
Then let me go ahead and just move then to, we have no special presentations tonight, so let's move to oral communications. Do we have any oral communications?
We do not have any for items that are not on the agenda.
Fantastic, thank you. Any changes to the agenda?
And there are no changes to the posted agenda.
Thank you. And let's go ahead and move forward with the approval of the minutes for the May 20th meeting. May I have a motion to approve the May 20th meeting?
Motion to approve?
And a second?
I'll second.
Okay, the motion passes with Commissioners Kamarat and Quinn absent.
Thank you. Now we can move on to item 8A, the Leucadia Oaks Native Plant Demonstration Garden. And I understand we have some speakers to speak to this particular topic. So I'll go ahead and hand it over to staff.
Thank you, Chair Ritter. We have Michael Peltz and Associates here with us tonight. They are the design team for this project, which is the Leucadia Oaks Native Plant Demonstration Garden. This is a project that came to us from City Council, born out of quite a bit of community interest. We're very excited about it. We're in the design phase now. Happy to present the concepts to you, and I'll turn it over to Mike.
Thank you, David. We met about 3 months ago, 4 months ago, something like that, with the community, Native Plants for Encinitas, and talked about the project, handed out an outreach survey to them, which they completed during that session. I think we also posted it online and didn't have any response back from the online posting. But from that meeting, we collected a lot of input on how to basically lay out the garden. And I will describe where the garden's located if you're looking at your screen. The garden is in the southeast corner of Leucadia Oaks Park in Leucadia. If you zoom in, you'll see it's that area that's shown on the screen. Currently exists of primarily lawn area, a few native oak trees or California oak trees, and there are a couple of non-native trees in the area as well. One is an ash tree, and there are a few strawberry trees as well. And so that's the area that we're looking at. It's the area shown on the screen. As I mentioned, we did an outreach survey and had a list of questions and hoping to get a response to help direct or guide our design efforts on this native garden area. The results are shown in the lower right, or the right side of that screen. And what we did is looked at all of the results, but took special notice of the ones that scored, I believe it was above 8, so 8 out of 10. And those caught our attention the most. And so we directed our designs to try and respond to most of those, if not all of those responses that are highlighted in green. I can go through that list if you'd like. I don't know if you can read that well enough on your screen, but I'm happy to go through that questionnaire if you'd like. But in essence, the important things were that the folks who responded to the survey wanted to make sure that we protected in place all of the California native oaks. They wanted to replace all of the non-native plant material, so the lawn, the trees that weren't native, with natives, and wanted to use California natives only. There was some discussion as to whether or not we should use just California natives or also include Baja natives, since we're probably closer to Baja than we are to Santa Barbara or San Francisco and things like that. So, but in the end, the group responded and preferred California natives only, with the caveat that the natives would be local to the San Diego area. So that's our focus on the types of plants that we want to highlight in this new garden or proposed garden. There was also some discussion about whether or not we wanted folks to be able to walk through the garden. It was our personal preference that folks would be allowed to walk through the garden to get up close to the California natives that were proposed, as opposed to kind of walking on the perimeter of the garden. So we have a couple of concepts that we're going to show you that provide access, designed a few more pathways through that space that you saw earlier. Many of the plants, the group that responded wanted to see pollinators incorporated into the native garden material. They wanted to see plant diversity. And they also wanted to introduce plant identification plaques on each of the plants so folks could understand what they're looking at, and have at least one interpretive panel to discuss some native plant topic to be determined. But there were a lot of ideas that came out of that workshop. So with that, let's move to the next. This is the first concept that we looked at. What it does is it leaves in place the existing sidewalks. So folks that come to the park from east of the park or south of the park, most likely are going to approach on this corner, which has an existing ADA ramp and concrete walkways that go both to the north and to the west. There's also a DG path existing that comes out of the center of that corner that takes folks up into the park, and you walk along the swings and the playground and to the north of the proposed native garden. The original RFP that we responded to, I think at the end of last year, in pursuing this project, looked at creating a native garden in the area to the west. So on your screen, if you can find where the DG path is in the center that goes along the swings and playground, everything south of that line was proposed to go into a native garden. In looking at it, we wanted to explore whether or not we should also incorporate the area that's to the north and east of that pathway. We just felt like it expanded the native garden a bit and made it feel a little bit more anchored in the park. And so that's what we're looking at now. I think whether or not that portion of the project actually gets implemented right away is going to be up to whether or not we have the funds to incorporate that portion. This concept really takes the existing walks and adds just one walkway or pathway through the native oaks that are on the left-hand side of the garden. You can see it kind of connects the concrete walkway that's existing to the paths that are also existing through that connector. I don't know if there's a way that we can point at that or highlight that area. So it's that if you can see the icon moving there. So we're connecting that, and that provides some additional up close and personal experience with the native garden through the oak trees, which we feel would be a nice kind of experience to walk under the oak trees and through that shaded part of the garden. And we've also incorporated some new benches, and we have tried to illustrate with various colors of the garden that there'd be diversity in the plant material selected. And it hasn't been determined exactly what plants we're using yet, but we do have a list that we can go over with you if you'd like of plants that we're considering. There was a concern in the survey about people who might want to walk into the garden and off the path, and we'd like to protect the garden from that kind of activity. There's also concern about folks with dogs and dogs wandering off the path and wanting to smell the garden and do things like that dogs are prone to do. And so we've talked a bit about how do we edge the paths? Do we put a fence up? Do we put boulders up that discourages that kind of behavior? All of those things are to be determined, but we are thinking that there be some kind of a barrier along the pathways to contain the movement or access into the garden. So this is concept one. Concept two is similar, but it explores even more pathways through the garden. And we kind of looked at this one as being more like a branch of a tree, if you will, if you look at it in plan view and the way the paths connect and kind of sweep through. This is a bit more fluid than the previous concept showed. It allows a lot more access or proximity to various plant types in the garden, and also provides better access through the garden to from the corner to the playground and to there's a seating area that's sort of to the northeast of that swings and playground area that this provides better access to. And it's just another way to look at it. And we would love to get everybody's feedback on a preference between concept 1, concept 2, which really kind of relate to the amount of access through the garden that's shown. Both of our concepts look at removing the ash tree that's existing and the strawberry trees. There was some concern about having non-native trees in the Encinitas native plant garden. So we're showing those trees being removed, but we'd like your input on that too, and the community's input on that as well. Underneath the oak trees, we're proposing to use simply oak leaf litter or mulch, not planning to plant under the oak trees for the most part. Oaks are sensitive to how much water and how much compaction is over their root zones, and so we're trying to minimize that with the designs that we're showing. I mentioned earlier that we want to do an interpretive panel somewhere in the garden to talk about native plants. So that will be a part of it. And the other pictures there show seeding and the low fence that's currently on a portion of the garden now, that if we do a fence, it would match or mimic that type of fence. Lastly, what we've got to show you is a plant list that we're working on. And this, like I said, it's just sort of our beginning ideas on the types of plants that might be possible to plant in this garden. And we wanted to share it with you in case you had any that you really liked or really hated. And we wanted to try and adjust our list accordingly if you have that kind of input. And I think that is it. We're open for any questions you might have.
I think before we get started, why don't we go ahead and have our guest speaker come up and share his thoughts. And I understand he has some time donations.
Yes, so we received one speaker slip, Mark Wisniewski, and he has 2 speaker donations for a total of 9 minutes.
Is it on? Good evening, Chairman Ritter, members of the commission. My name is Mark Wisniewski, and you're here tonight because 2 years ago, I recommended that the city install a native plant demonstration garden in Leucadia Oaks Park. And we got together many community members that supported the idea, and eventually we got the subcommittee of the city council, Bruce Ehlers and Joy Lyons, behind the concept also. So instead of the community doing the hard work and raising the funds, the city chipped in some funds. So in the background on the agenda, a couple items are to increase soil health. I haven't heard how that's going to be addressed. And the benefits of irrigation efficiency, that also needs to be addressed. My question is, were all the existing native plants retained? That include 2 ceanothus, 1 redbud, 1 manzanita with great structure, and numerous showy island snapdragons, many on the north side of the planting, which are about 3 to 4 foot tall and provide a barrier so the kids can't cut across into the playground area. Also, it's a good thing, yes, we saved the coast live oaks, Quercus agrifolia, and the western sycamore, which is a great example. Seating, in most cases, has been removed around the play area rather than being increased. You need to have increased supervision about the play area because the kids like to run and stomp on the plants, pull off the flowers, and take those plastic doggy bags and just run about 15, 20 feet of them out without the parents, paying any attention. So instead of removing seating, increase it. Use additional recycled wood from tree removal projects, just like the ones that are there, and increase the seating and supervision. Handicap access. Currently, next to the streets, the 2 streets surrounding the park at this corner, there's turf area between the pavement and the sidewalk, which facilitates people with strollers, walkers, And most handicapped people are the passenger, not the driver. So they can't get out of the car. There's no parking around there where they can get out, unless they're parking across the street on, the homeowner's property. Also, there's an alternative to flagstones and low plants in that boulevard strip. It's called UC Verde buffalo grass. The benefit of it is it can be mowed, but it doesn't need to be mowed as frequently. Jessie Gisau, who gave me some time, she has it growing in her yard, and we'd be invited to come over and see what it looks like. She mows it 2 or 3 times a week in the summertime, and it only has to be watered about once a week, sometimes less depending on the weather. So that's increasing water efficiency. And yes, it goes dormant, but it greens up quickly when the weather heats up. One thing, if you're going to try and attract pollinators and birds, you need water. That's the main thing that they need besides the plants that they're servicing. I've got a little bird bath in my backyard, and I have to sometimes fill it up twice a day. And I don't have the extensive garden that this would attract, hopefully. So please consider a working water feature. Also, on the plant list, there should be plants that produce insects that attract birds. Birds just don't go for seeds or flowers. They also like the insects that they need to feed their young. So I would suggest that that would be a good thing to add. For increasing soil health, raised beds using boulders or recycled wood from the city's tree removals would be one way to do that. Another way, incorporated with that, is to use a device called an air knife or an air spade, which can aerate the soil, which relieves the compaction. The soil is heavily compacted and filled with oak tree and sycamore roots. So how are you going to plant without damaging the roots of the trees you're trying to protect? You use the air knife and the air spade, because it won't damage roots the size of my pen point. I've used it for over 20 years on all kinds of reconstruction projects and pre-construction planning of avoiding root damage. It's a very simple tool, easy to use, and if you are going to bring in additional soil, then you can use that to mix the two soils so you don't create a lens. I think that's most of my comments, but I would suggest that maybe the landscape architect group take some of these ideas back and discuss it and maybe come up with a revised concept plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark, for a very well-informed commentary, and sounds like there's some good ideas in there. Certainly appreciate you coming tonight to speak to us. Any questions, opening it up to the commissioners that they would like to ask of staff?
I had one question. In the public comment regarding water for pollinators, would it be difficult to add some kind of water feature? I mean, that requires probably irrigation and all of that. Is that something that's been considered?
Wasn't originally in the scope of the project. We'd have to look to see what we have out there for infrastructure and what products might be available. Obviously, we can't fill a bird bath twice a day with the manpower that we have. However, there's probably something out there that autofills, and have to see if that's something that we could add to the project.
Okay, thank you.
I would say right now my own personal garden is like at its peak, and so we have lots of bees, we have lots of hummingbirds, lots of birds in general that are coming, and we have 2 fountains, both bubblers, that I notice a lot of activity from the birds, and even the hummingbirds will come in and use it. I've seen them actually wait for it to come on in the mornings as well, where they're just actually there waiting for the water. So I do see personally, just in my own garden, how important having some type of water feature there to kind of supplement the native plants that we're putting in. So I do think that if there is something that we could do regarding incorporating water into it, because it is an important component to consider when we think about native gardens, then I think it would be a good idea to include that. Commissioner Capiello, I think you had some comments?
Yeah, I have a couple questions and comments. The overarching question I have is, what is the definition of native plants? Is there a year, an era? I mean, we've been here, I mean, the land's been here for millions of years, so I'm just curious. Is it like we're trying to get back to a place of 100 years ago, 50 years ago?
A native plant, and I think the folks here from Native Plants for Encinitas would be able to answer this probably better than I can, but there are several references that landscape architects and community members interested in native plants refer to. And there are lots of different lists, but most of them contain 99% the same plant material. So there are native plants that grew here before Western civilization landed here. If it's been imported, you know, something that grows great here and springs up on its own now, but it was brought from Australia or someplace like that, that is not qualified as a native plant. So what we're hoping to see in the native plant garden are plants that naturally grow in California that have not been imported from anywhere else in the world.
Okay. Sorry, it was just for my edification. Just thanks for that. I did want to ask about, so the turf removal as part of something that should help save on some water costs. Is there some component to that where there's, I don't know, a rebate or something? Is there another motivation to remove the turf in that park that we're looking at?
Good question about the rebate. Not sure if we qualify for it yet, but it is a good way to show homeowners, which is one of our target audiences, that if you do remove your turf and replace it with the Waterwise garden, that you are eligible for those rebates. Part of this project will create a web page within the park's web page that talks about the project, and we can link to some of those potential rebates, and then we'll also have language in there that educates homeowners about those programs.
I think the speaker made a good point, and I'm sure if the city's involved, there has to be some ADA compliance, but I am curious. That is an interesting comment, because I believe that park doesn't have its own parking lot, right? It's only street parking.
Correct, street parking only.
Right. So I would suggest that it would be beneficial for everybody involved and kind of look at that a little bit closer to see if there is at least some area that's going to provide better access for people who need better accessibility or in wheelchairs or whatnot, if that's possible, if it's not too late to that, or maybe you've already looked at that and you can comment.
The city has an ADA transition plan that outlines improvements that we need to make throughout the city, not just parks, but to all of our facilities. We have a project right now in Glen Park that's going to address being able to get from the upper parking lot down to the lower bowl on an ADA path. So each year, the funding comes to that program to make those. It's part of a larger program that we have to do to meet ADA and show that we're continuing to meet it. Currently, there is no ADA parking space available. So when folks park there now, even if they get out of the car and hit the grass, it's not technically ADA. So whether we replace it with DG or another substrate, it's going to be the same. I believe Leucadia Oaks is on the transition plan. That is somewhat fluid as ADA changes over the years. You've seen around town where the city has installed ADA compliant parallel parking spaces. So that would be the best solution for this park, given that we don't have a parking lot. But that's ultimately not a part of this project.
Okay. But something that can be incorporated as soon as we're able to kind of figure that out. Okay. Is there any intent to seek further community input after this point, after our input today and city's input? Is there going to be another outreach?
That's a good question. We are anticipating going back to City Council to have them look at the concepts as well, subsequent to this meeting, and potentially some revisions. So that will be one option. And we may want to get some input from folks when we really start to dial in what our educational components are going to be, the signage and website content and things like that.
What's the goal right now as far as getting, shovels in the dirt, so to speak?
This fall?
Oh, wow, right on. Thanks. Thank you. I would say I agree with the comments regarding a water feature. If at all possible, I think that's something that would definitely enhance what this already looks great. And I just think if there's a way to incorporate some water feature, that would be great, and that would be my recommendation.
Any other commissioners? Go ahead.
Thanks. I think my only comment is on the first two options. Was the first one maybe the potential for the boulders or the low fencing, but the second one, that might be a bit much for having too many boulders. You would just see more boulders and fencing than actual plants. But that would be just a comment on that one.
Thank you. Do you have another comment?
Yeah, I guess the call of duty here was to give some comment on which plan we liked between the first or the second. Sorry, I missed that. I like the second concept because I feel like you have more access to the native plant areas by having extra walkways. But I do agree with the commissioner's comment about whether that's just too much fencing or something, but my vote would be for concept 2.
Any other general comments?
I had a comment on the concepts. Also, I actually prefer concept 1 because I worry about in concept 2, there's a pathway that goes between 2 oak trees, the furthest east ones. And if that's just going to be covered with the oak leaf litter as you described it, does that create a way for people to easily go off into underneath the trees and create an opportunity? I don't know how sensitive the root systems are, but does it potentially cause a damage opportunity, or a child thinks, oh, I can climb the tree? And I'm just thinking that the second concept feels a little busy, a lot of crisscrossing paths, and I would prefer to just see a lot of plants. But personal preferences, I guess.
Any other comments? I'll go ahead and share some of my thoughts. First of all, I'm happy to hear that there's going to be a web page that would be built in conjunction to the native demonstration garden, because I think that can be very informative, particularly for those that may not even have an opportunity to visit the garden. So the whole city would, and any others beyond the city, would have an opportunity to view that. I think some on-site demonstrations from time to time would be worthwhile too, and perhaps working with some of the local nonprofits, that might be a great opportunity to partner together to really share with the community what you're doing. So I think that would be a great idea. I do have some concerns with regards to the playgrounds and swings being so close to some of the plant material, and just how well that we can keep the the native garden somewhat separated from kids playing, or like Mark had mentioned, the dogs, or perhaps that was staff presenting. So there's just a little concern with that, and it does look like the thing that's really closest to the playground and the swings truly is that large oak tree there that has basically the oak leaf litter underneath it. So hopefully that would be enough to maybe discourage too much play into the areas further west and south of it. But I would be interested in, what kind of barriers that we could kind of incorporate into the design that would feel natural, that provides that separation. I guess the other question too is, as we kind of look at this area and you look at existing usage, is this an area that we find that families are currently utilizing? So, when we build something new, I think it's also important to understand what was there before. So there can be habits that people kind of go back and do the same thing at the same place type of thing. And I know some people, when in designing commercial spaces, will actually just leave it open and see where the paths naturally occur when people walk across the land. So it kind of informs in that respect. So I would also just be somewhat interested to know that is that area that we're kind of looking at here, does it tend to generally be not as populated with people and kids? And if there are areas that tend to be more populated, what again can we do to kind of create a barrier to protect the native garden? It may be kind of really early in the process, but I think another thing for us to consider too is just as we consider the two different concepts is there much of a price difference between the two concepts from a build-out standpoint? It's basically, I kind of feel like when I look at the two different concepts, the branch concept tends to be more pass, less plants, and the first concept is more plants and less pass. So DG is relatively inexpensive to put in, and we're using the existing concrete or pavers, it looks like. So there's probably not a huge cost difference. I would say that, again, from my own personal experience, sometimes when we look at these detailed landscape plans, that it looks great on paper, but once you put it out into the field, it's a little too complicated. And for me, I feel like concept 2, the branch one, is perhaps a little bit too complicated. I think that simplifying it where there might be a little less paths going through and actually being able to showcase perhaps more native plants would be more ideal for me. The other thing that I would just say, and I'll just direct this question to Manager Norgard, as you look at the two different concepts and view it from an operational standpoint, is there one concept that would be easier to care for, be less expensive to maintain year after year versus another?
Thank you, Chair Ritter. That's a great question. By and large, I think they'll be pretty similar. I think to echo your comments about concept 2, the smaller spaces created by more paths tend to be a little bit harder to maintain over time. With that regard, I think maybe concept 1 might be a little bit easier to maintain.
Thank you. I also kind of think that we're building this native garden for not only humans, but also obviously for the pollinators and the birds to come and enjoy it. And I feel like the more that we can create a more congruent garden that's not perhaps as separated for human use, but may be more beneficial for pollinator and bird use, that might be another reason why I prefer concept one. And then staff, is this the first opportunity beyond the survey for the community to provide input on these two concepts?
It is, yes.
Okay, thank you. I do agree with the removal of the ash and the strawberry trees. If they're not considered native in our area, I feel like if we're going to have a native demonstration garden, it needs to all be native plants. So I feel like it's somewhat hypocritical if we would retain those trees. I certainly second Mark's thoughts on soil health, which we really didn't talk a whole lot about during the presentation, but just realizing how important that is. We do worm composting at our own house and for our own organic garden, and so I think that's all kind of part of the idea of creating the native garden, and I also think that it would be great to incorporate soil health with regards to the demonstration information that we would have there. I like the idea regarding the handicap access with regards to having some type of parallel parking spot for handicap access to easily access it. And then, again, I like the idea of including a water source. The only last thing that I would say, I have raised gardens in my organic garden, and it's masonry, which is great because they don't rot. But I would say that maybe having a raised bed feature at some point, which kind of raises it up off the ground and allows people to maybe see plants a little closer up, might be another thing to consider. And I know that there's additional costs associated with that type of thing, but I do feel like it is somewhat of an access idea, as well as, I don't know, just being a little closer to it. So I would just kind of throw the idea that I like the raised bed thing. Now, I know, Mark, you have a question, and what we'll do is we'll just go ahead and entertain it for as kind of a additional comment, since you had a few minutes there left on your 9 minutes. So if you wanted to add anything additional.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. I'd like to provide a little clarification because I've spent hours on the site looking at how the site's used, and it's very heavily used in that playground area all the time. Kids in the morning, especially on weekends, it's crowded, and that's why it requires additional supervision. And that oak tree, they love that oak tree. They climb it. I've seen little kids with their 5-year-old sister up a couple branches, and he's on the ground hugging the tree and jumping up and down because he can't wait for his turn. So you don't want to impede access to the oak tree. And yeah, sometimes they break little branches out of it, but that's where maintenance comes in. But it is very heavily used. And also, there were 2 trees removed on the plan that weren't mentioned, but there are 2 oaks that are non-native oaks. They're on the north side, and they're very large, mature specimen trees in good health. It is Leucadia Oaks Park. Yes, they're not native oaks, and this is a native oaks demonstration garden. But the other thing the city is considering at this time is a mature tree preservation ordinance. So I think it would be premature to remove large mature trees before that ordinance is done, because that's the thing that's the red hot button on every development plan that comes before the Planning Commission in the city, is you remove too many trees. So my 2 comments. Thank you for the additional time.
And thank you for your additional comments. Very informative. I tend to agree with you that particularly in light of the mature tree ordinance coming forward, I would certainly like to continue to consider retaining those. And until at least we have some definition as exactly what that ordinance is going to entail. Any other comments before we kind of maybe pick a concept, and I'll just kind of go down the line and have each of you kind of just express what your favorite concept is. Vice Chair Evers, did you have something first?
Yeah, just one clarifying question. And thank you to the speaker for bringing this forward. We've talked a little bit about the trees and the trees removal, but the gentleman spoke about existing natives and whether they were going to be removed. And do you have any input on that or insight?
Sure, that's a good question. Native material that's on site that we can save, we can definitely repurpose. We'll have to take a look at the health of them. Some species replant better than others, but if we have the opportunity to reuse them, we will.
And then, and sorry if this puts you on the spot and you don't know, but if does one concept or the other impact that removal in a different way? You know, is there a way to, does one concept preserve better than the other?
They're equal in that regard.
Thank you for all the great questions. Thank you for the information from the audience. Certainly appreciate that. Would you like to go ahead and just kind of share your thoughts with regards to your favorite concept, and then the action that's associated with this particular item is that we actually select a concept?
I'm liking concept 1. Also, the bench placement on there, though, those are existing or coming up? The benches that are in the diagram in concept 1, really quick.
For the most part, those are existing locations.
Okay.
I think we tried to add a few just to
Yeah.
give a place for folks to enjoy the garden a little more.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, 1, and the water feature. I also have a bird bath.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I also prefer concept 1 with the addition of if there's a way to put in some kind of a water feature, but one that doesn't require to be filled manually twice a day, because that's not going to work. In terms of barriers, I tend to prefer a low fence over boulders. Boulders, I think the park is decent size, but this area, if I remember exactly where it is, it's not huge, and I worry about boulders being a trip hazard if there are children running around. So fences are a little easier to avoid. And I like the idea of holding off on removing native trees until we know if there's actually going to be a more formal policy regarding that. Mature trees, and that's all.
A lot of good comments. I like concept 2 for providing a little bit more closer viewing of the native plants by adding some more pathways. But there are interesting and important comments regarding whether they're infringing on the roots or too cluttered, which I think are well taken. I still probably would lean toward concept 2, just because I think at least it provides an additional pathway. Maybe there's a hybrid between concept 1 and concept 2 that gives some path on that northeast side that's not in concept 1. So yeah, I'd probably still lean toward concept 2 with the other comments that I made earlier.
Yeah, thank you for the comments and the presentation is very helpful. Concept 2, when you look at it from like the bird's eye view, it's beautiful. You can see the flowing of the branches and how it kind of looks like a tree. But I think with this discussion and getting some of the feedback, I think I would go with concept 1 to try to have more of the space for the plants and, kind of preserve the root system and the other things that were discussed.
I would select concept one based upon my earlier comments. Manager Norgard, for clarification, our action item was to select a preference. As a commission, can we also include not only in what our preference is, but also list some of the things that the commission feels were important considerations or potential adds?
Absolutely. Your role is to make recommendations to City Council. This is your time to do that. A couple clarifying points on tree removal. What we've really contemplated with these concepts is the removal of the ash and the strawberry trees. And when we go to council to seek their approval of one of the concepts, I want to be deliberate in actually seeking their approval for that as well. As a rule, we don't remove mature trees in our department unless they're diseased or dying or there's some really important need for that. So we're tracking the mature tree ordinance with the Urban Forest Advisory Committee very closely. And, you know, just as good tree loving people, we're not really in favor of doing that. There was quite a bit of discussion in our community meeting about whether or not to remove mature trees and what that looks like. And I think if we were to do that for the strawberry trees and the ash, we would plant an appropriate number of trees somewhere else in the park to kind of mitigate for that loss. We always mitigate when we remove trees, and we may want to look at doing that at a higher ratio. And then, as Mark mentioned, there's some smaller trees in there. So we're at a really high concept level right now, and as we drill into the planting plan, we can get to the point where we're determining what can and can't be in there. As far as the other oak trees that are in there, there's no plan to remove any of the other mature oaks or larger trees. But to answer your question, yes, you can absolutely make any recommendation that you guys would like.
And the strawberry and ash tree, I'm not quite sure where the starting point is when you consider what a mature tree is, but what are we looking at on the age of those couple trees? I assume they wouldn't qualify as a mature tree.
They may. We've actually removed several ash in the park over the last couple of years. They had been declining, kind of reaching the end of their useful lives. We removed a couple before Arbor Day because they were looking pretty bad, and the city arborist gave us that recommendation. The strawberry trees are also pretty big, so they might meet that definition, which is in our urban forestry manual.
All right, so there seems to be more in favor of concept one. So I would put a motion to the floor that our commission prefers concept one. And then I would then add some of the things that we've chatted about. And just kind of off the top of my head, the addition of a very small water feature within the native garden. What are some other ideas that were important to you?
Keep the native plants that are currently there. Was one of the ones we discussed, right? To the
native
best.
Plants that are currently there, you might use them in the garden, or you may plant them somewhere else. Is that the idea, Manager Norgard?
Yeah, where feasible to save them, we can reuse them.
Okay. So water feature, I think there's been some interest, and I feel somewhat like Commissioner Kimball mentioned regarding the boulders. I kind of like the idea of particularly lining the paths. If there's something that we can use as a barrier, whether it's a small fence or something that basically provides that feeling of a barrier with it still feeling somewhat natural. Without becoming a tripping hazard, I think I think we seem to be in agreement on that one. I think we're also in agreement that we'd like to remove the ash and strawberry trees out of it. And show of heads nodding. Okay, great. How do you feel with regards to just mentioning that we'd like to see a parallel handicap spot dedicated? Not necessarily that it needs to happen with the project, but just that we would love to see emphasis placed on having that there at the park. And curious if anyone feels any affinity towards my idea of having a small raised bed.
Yeah, we just don't have like what that looks like from this presentation. Is
Right.
it wood? Is it concrete? Is it where? I mean, I'm okay with adding that as into our recommendation, but upon further sort of evaluation of what that would look like.
I take a contrary view because I don't, at least at first, I don't see where it fits in. And having had raised beds in my backyard that are not, that are wood, there's a maintenance issue. And I've seen raised beds done in projects like Eagle projects or Girl Scout projects around town. If someone's not actively maintaining it, they fall into disrepair pretty quickly. And irrigation is harder to get up there. So unless there's a very specific focus that we want to have for that raised bed, I think it's more work than it's worth, and it puts a larger burden on staff to maintain it.
Those are some excellent comments. One other thing that I would say, just because I'm kind of a design visual person, it may take away some of the kind of natural feel of it if all of a sudden we have kind of a raised bed section in there, if everything else is pretty much, small stones, leaf litter, native plants. To have something other than a bench, for instance, there that's a raised bed, it might feel a little bit out of place as well. And I certainly understand your comment with regards to maintenance. If it's not made out of something that's not going to rot, it is one of those things that's a lot more of a challenge. And then also maintaining the bed is harder than if it's just in the ground. So I'm happy with withdrawing that particular recommendation from the motion. Is there anything else as a commission that we would like to add?
Do we want to suggest additional seating or a bench?
If staff might just kind of direct our attention to what the seating proposed is in concept one.
Sure. You can see several of these brown rectangles kind of scattered throughout. So there's some there, and then it's difficult to see with the tree canopy, but there is some additional seating out there as well. So additional benches and seating opportunities are pretty easy to add to the plan.
Is there a sense that additional seating is necessary?
I think we could recommend that they look into putting more seating in. The speaker today even mentioned that should help with all the kids and families that use the playground, and there's not enough currently. So, yes, I'd be for adding more seats.
All right. I might also then recommend consideration of adding additional seating. Any other comments from the commission?
On the concept one drawing, I count sorry about that. On concept one, I look at the drawing and I see, I think 5 benches on the western side of the garden. Is that actual or is that concept?
I think what's out there now are 2 benches. One's opposite the swings that you see
Okay.
on Concept One, and one just under the big oak tree looking at the playground.
Okay,
The other 2, I believe, are new or proposed.
okay.
But yeah, we could add more benches. I think it's great to be able to sit under a tree and kind of enjoy nature. So if you want more, we're happy to add them.
And there's really no benches on kind of that additional area that you'd like to also expand the native plant garden to the east. So maybe there might be an opportunity to add some benches over in that area. I would say the only other thing that I would like to add is to the motion is just that that we also reach out to the local nonprofit here to see if they might be interested in participating in any type of education on-site demonstrations and during the summer or whenever the plants are kind of the healthiest, when you can show them off when they're looking great. So just to kind of communicate with them and see if there might be some interest. So I think that would be all that I would add to the motion unless there are any other thoughts from the commissioners. If not, if I could have a second.
I'll second.
I'm going to ask for clarification on the motion. So the motion is to recommend to City Council Concept 1 with the conditions of a water feature, reusing existing native plants, removing the ash and strawberry trees, consideration of more seating, a public education feedback, and then adding more of the wooden fencing. Is that correct?
I think it's not a condition of, maybe it's a recommendation to explore, Chair.
Explore.
So in the language to the city council, instead of saying it's not a condition that to move this forward, it's more that we're recommending concept 1 and further recommending exploration of these concepts, these suggestions. Just so the language is.
Okay. All right, we'll take a vote.
And you're missing the ADA spot.
Spots. Thank you. And the motion passes with Commissioners Quinn and Kamarat absent.
Well, I'd like to just thank the citizens that have come in tonight to support this measure, not only for tonight, but also all the time and effort that you've taken previous to this to work with City Council, to work with city staff. Very much appreciated. I can't wait to go out there and see it in person. So thank you again for everything. And of course, it's not done yet, so keep an eye on how it moves forward with City Council. But I'm speaking for our commission. We're really excited for it, and for the city. Thank you. All right, let's move on to Agenda 8B, which is our commission work plan. First item up is number 1. And I will go ahead and turn it over to Commissioner Kimball to report on the Parks and Rec tours.
Yes, thank you. Manager Hamer and I have been corresponding on that topic, and she sent out an email to the commissioners yesterday suggesting August 7th from 10 to 2 as the date. We'd like to be able to finalize that, so if you can now confirm that's possible or need a day or two to confirm. We'd like to lock that up before we go dark, is my understanding, for us in July, and give her staff time to plan for that. So if you can respond now or respond to her and myself, and we will go assuming that.
Well, speaking for myself, I would be available to attend. I did speak with Commissioner Cormorant when he notified me that he was unavailable to attend tonight's meeting, and he said that he'd be working during that time, so he would be unable to attend. This is a special meeting, so a quorum will be required for us to actually have the meeting. So we have to have at least 4 for the date to work out. Did anyone else at this time want to indicate their availability?
I'm available that date.
I'm available.
I am. I responded to the email.
So it sounds like we would have 6 of the 7 commissioners available to attend on that day and time.
I don't believe we've heard from
Oh, I'm sorry.
Commissioner Quinn, but we have at least 5. Yes. Okay, so we will go forward with that then.
Great. And then on the parks tour, that will be something that we'll do afterwards. So we'll work on knocking out the recreation services tour first, and then we'll follow up later in the fall with the parks tour. And I'm sure you'll work with Manager Norgard on that. Anything else on that particular ad hoc?
No, thank you.
Okay, great. Moving over to number 2 on our ambassadorial duties. Commissioner Cormorant isn't here. Commissioner Quinn is also absent. So that leaves you, Commissioner Capiello. Would you like to comment on number 2?
It's a slow time of year, but not really. I see there's a lot of events coming up, but not the ones that require kind of our all hands on deck. So nothing new to bring to the table for between now and I think the next meeting that I'm aware of, unless there's something I'm not seeing.
Fantastic. I would say that I did attend EcoFest as a volunteer on June 1st, and that was a special presentation that we had received from Leah on that in last month's meeting. And it was held at Encinitas Community Park, and it was a great turnout on exhibitors. I think they had 80 exhibitors, which was huge. And it was all well appointed. I think they did a great job on setting everything up and having lots of interesting things there. Unfortunately, the weather was a little, well, it wasn't our friend that day for special events. So we had some sprinkles and it was a bit cool. So I think that depressed some attendance. But there certainly were a lot of people that still made the effort and showed up, and I thought it was a great event. The only other thing that I would just mention is that we did have, and Manager Norgard may speak to this as well during his operation report, but we did have the ribbon cutting for Scotts Valley Playground, and it was fantastic to see the community show up for that. As you may remember, the community together raised around $40,000 that they put towards the playground equipment that is designed for all. So for people who may be in a wheelchair, there were playground there's playground equipment available for them to participate on the teeter-totters and on the merry-go-round and other things. So hopefully when we do our park tour, perhaps we can head out to Scott Valley just to see it, because it is our only all abilities playground in the city, and I think it's exciting that we have it now. And a lot of that not only is due to staff, but also the community coming together and asking for it. So fantastic. I don't have anything else to add on that particular ad hoc, so we'll go ahead and move on to number 3 on identifying guest speakers. And Vice Chair Evers, would you like to comment on that?
I'm sure. At this time, we don't have any updates. I know we're dark in July, so we look forward to having someone in August and working on that.
All right, great, thank you. Number 4, Commissioner Cappiello, did you have any update that you'd like to make on that?
No, I think nothing's changed since the last time we checked in. Sometime, I was told at the end of the summer, we should have some feedback from the legal department, from the senior commission's bylaws. I did note that when City Council reviewed our work plan, there was some questions about the bylaws that I thought were a bit interesting, just because I think this is something we've been working on for a year. And there's some that were kind of taken aback, I guess, as to why this is happening. So I'm hopeful that when we get to the next phase, we'll have some good bylaws that demonstrate there's a reason we needed to update bylaws, and everybody's happy with that.
All right, sounds great. Moving on to number 5, I've reached out to the Carter Foundation. There's really no new update to really share on that at this point. Number 6, regarding outdoor adult fitness equipment, we're continuing to, the city is currently working on Orpheus and Glen Park in conjunction with the playground replacement projects there. And they're working on construction plans, and they'll be sending it out to bid hopefully soon. So, Manager Norgard, did you have anything else you would add to that?
No, you covered it well.
Okay. Moving on to number 7, regarding tennis and pickleball court usage in the city. Commissioner Cappiello, any input? I've heard that things have been pretty quiet on that front, which is great to hear.
There's been no call to action that's come across my eyes just yet as to anything that needs to be further reviewed or recommendations given at this point. So,
okay. I understand it's pretty quiet on that front. We'll see how things go once we lose some of the space at the rec center because of some of the summer programming that occurs. So we'll cross our fingers. Number 7, on pop-up parks at city events. Vice Chair Evers, did you have anything to comment on that?
No updates on that, but looking forward to our next event. So.
Great. And number 9, on trails, let's see. Commissioner Kimball, Commissioner Vander Auer, would you like to comment? Or together?
Yeah, I have it. I can start. Okay. Yeah, so Commissioner Van der Aar and myself attended the Parks and Trails meeting on the 11th.
Commissioner Kimball, if you could just get a little closer to the mic so they can hear you. Okay, great.
I usually have people have no trouble hearing me. I think of being on the stage, I'm more quiet now. We both attended the Parks and Trails meeting, and there were people there also from the Encinitas Trail Coalition, and 2 of the Parks and Trails supervisors, Bob Keeley and Tim Bellevue, provided an update. I can give a quick summary of what the projects are that have been completed in the last 6 months. First, they covered more about what's going on inside of Liebenhain. There's been various work improving fencing along Rancho Santa Fe Road. Some of you may have seen the new fencing that was put kind of on the northern part of Rancho Santa Fe Road, north of Del Norte, El Camino del Norte. Some various trimming trees and removing canary palms along the trails, some drainage projects, and working through some easement agreements to allow trail access. There is an upcoming trail closure that will be announced through the proper city channels, a temporary closure to accommodate some construction around 1520 Rancho Encinitas Drive. And so they're doing some extra drainage work, and they will have to put in a temporary detour to allow usage of the alternate trail while that's going on. It looks like that's an area from what some of the Encinitas Trail Coalition people were saying, that that's a popular trail for horses and hiking. There's also a development called Oak One that's past like Fortuna Ranch Road, past Country Roads, and you keep going. I actually didn't realize that that was still Encinitas. To be honest, I ended up driving out there afterwards because I didn't even know where that was. It borders up on Rancho Santa Fe Road. There's a new development that's gone out there, and there's the 2 phases of trail work. The first one has been completed by Shea Homes and turned over to the city, with a second phase in progress. It has some pretty fabulous views out into the backcountry and then looking west, so I would, it's worth checking out. Closer to the coast, they also provided some update on Encinitas Ranch trails. Bikes are not allowed on some of the trails per the master plan, but compliance has been an issue, so they're looking at ways to try to discourage bicyclists, but acknowledge that's difficult. Indian Head Canyon is in the same state, and they're actually considering adding chicanes to discourage e-bike traffic. I think that's become more of a problem as more and more people are using them. People have had some difficulty knowing where they can park to access the Olevenhain trails, and I guess often then park on private property. We did discuss that we could add more information on outer spatial, and Commissioner Vander Aar brought up that we had talked at a previous commission meeting about adding more content to outer spatial for the trails as we looked at them, and that might be a great way to share park, a block away, and then you can walk over to where the trail is. The Trail Coalition asked if they could participate in discussion for future improvements to Little Oaks Park. They were interested in some shade structures. I don't recall if there was anything else that they were interested in funding it. Oh, they were interested in funding it? Oh, okay. That was my understanding. So,
They wanted to help. What could they do? What do we want that they could help with?
So that's the update from the meeting. The next meeting, I believe, will be in December.
Well, thank you for that very thorough report. Any other comments on that particular work plan item? On number 10, on the naming and so forth, Commissioner Capiello, is there anything that you have to report on that?
I do not. I wasn't aware of that. Commissioner Comarat or Quinn weren't going to be present tonight, so I wasn't able to get any update from them.
That one's really kind of in a holding pattern until we hear back from some of the tribal representatives. So we've reached out to see if they want to speak with us about some potential naming opportunities. When we hear back, we'll be able to bring that back to the ad hoc.
I have a general question about this. If it is in a holding pattern, I guess, time does fly. Is there any goal from the city council as far as like when we'd like to hit these gate posts of accomplishing what's in this work plan? Like just reaching out to them, I guess, is one, but if they're not getting back to us, is there some date in the future that we want to try to put a fire under us, or these other tribes that might want to participate?
Sure, I think that's a great question. I think for now, we're going to kind of take it one step at a time and see if we hear back from them, yes or no, and give that enough time to determine if they're actually interested. Related to that, Caltrans or Sandag's going to be out there doing that double trekking for a number of years. It would be nice to have something to show on this work plan. We're kind of at the mercy of folks outside of our organization right now, so I think we'll stay on this path, and if we need to pivot, we can kind of seek some other ways to show progress on this.
Thank you. Number 11, on the pollinator garden, Commissioner Vander Auer, would you like to address anything on that?
I don't have any updates since we met with staff. I think that's one on a holding pattern as well.
And I do have maybe a little bit to share in addition to that. I think the department at this point wants to kind of open it up, and perhaps in a future commission meeting here, maybe in August or September, where we would invite not only the people that we've met with there at Pacific View, where the ad hoc met with them, but also any other interested parties as to anything that they might want to do in that corner, so that they would be given access to bring their ideas forward. So I think that is kind of our next step on this particular ad hoc, is to extend those invitations to present to us, and then kind of work through with staff as to how to kind of proceed on this. It is a small piece of land, and so it is one of those things where we have to kind of balance what exactly we want to do on it. And the other thing that is a large contributing factor is that the temporary fire station is going to be built there, so it's not going to be something that we can act on real soon, because that fire station needs to be built and done before we can really provide any access to that area through an MOU with a nonprofit, if we decide to go that direction. So, Manager Norgard, would you have any other comments to kind of add to that?
You summed it up well. I do think that having folks come in the August meeting would be best. That way we can get some feedback and see what next steps are after that. If you could send me the contact that you met with, I have a couple that have reached out to me directly as well, and I think it'd be great to send it out to all of those, and then get some noticing out through our social channels to let folks know that this is something we're looking at.
Okay, I'll be sure to get that to you, or if you'd like to send it, either one. While you're on the spotlight, if you'd like to go ahead and speak to anything that's been going on with the ad hoc for promoting our rental spaces.
Yeah, so on May 23rd, Manager Hamer sent out an email to the commission to maybe give feedback on the Encinitas Community Center, if you've ever attended an event there, to kind of go on Zola and the Knot. Is that correct? Maybe Manager Hamer could add to that, but like looking for feedback so that there's some reviews, positive reviews on the space. Do you have anything further on that one?
We have received quite a few inquiries, more than we would normally have, Zola in particular. And that's a way that we draw in new clients and customers to come experience the Encinitas Community Center. So we have found good results, but the reviews are what, elevates it even more. And we did find on one of the sites we were in a top 10 for location to rent. So it's been a good experience just getting ourselves, beyond the city webpage, and then interacting, with you as a commission and our renters. So we also, every time somebody rents a space, we follow up with them. We ask for a survey, and we request that they also do, their own rating on the sites. So we have found some success in general, and any way you can continue to spread the word, or if you haven't done a rating yet, that would be appreciated, because the more you have, the more exposure you get.
And then I know that we had talked about in this particular ad hoc about maybe assisting with the distribution of the Park and Rec Guide. When's the next Park and Rec Guide coming out, and is that something you'd still like our assistance with?
So the summer guide is out. I did not bring extra copies because that's one that we run out of often. So in the fall will be August. So probably for our first meeting, or perhaps when we have our tour. I don't have the exact date in front of me, but it's August. I will definitely bring a stack for each person. And like we have found, or I know Commissioner Quinn mentioned, he was at his doctor's appointment and there was one, there with the other magazines. So we really want to make sure they're in all the different spaces and places beyond city facilities, and beyond the obvious, and the different nooks and crannies of the community. So that would be appreciated. For summer, we're covered, but definitely for the fall, I will plan to bring those.
Great, thank you. Any other questions or comments on this one? All right, we have one more on the Adventure Labs. Commissioner Kimball, would you like to address that?
Yes, thank you. Right now, August 2nd is the next art night, and if the Youth Commission decides to run the Adventure Lab app for that, we will get request if we want to come and help volunteer for that. I did find, and I know a few of you volunteered when we did the first art night, I did find that if someone was there to kind of highlight it, people, would pick it up and go. And so I think having people marketing it there is great. And then I did speak with Manager Hamer while we were discussing the rec tour, that perhaps when the Youth Commission comes back online in the fall, one of us may want to go from the ad hoc to one of their meetings to meet them and see if there are other ways that we can collaborate them more with them in this space, but nothing on the calendar at this point.
That sounds like a great idea. I love that. Any other comments on that ad hoc?
No, that's it. Thanks.
Thank you. At that point, we've kind of wrapped up the work plan, so let's move on to the 9A Parks Operations Report, and Manager Norgard, please.
Thank you, Chair Ritter. I only have a couple items tonight. One that you covered, which was the Scott Valley Park ribbon cutting event. So after quite a few years of hard work and diligence from the city consultants and the donating family, we were able to wrap up that park. It was a pretty fantastic ribbon cutting. It was just great to see the local community turn out, including the donor family as well. In addition to that, the fencing project that Commissioner Kimball mentioned, that was a grant-funded project in the same grant round as the Wyro and Orpheus Parks and some of the other projects that we have going on, like Carve Sports Park. And that project's pretty much complete. We have just some paperwork and some QA/QC punch list items to go through, but we'll be closing that project out as well. And that concludes my operations report.
Thank you. And before we move on to recreation services, I unfortunately skipped over our new work plan item that was actually directed by City Council last month, or earlier this month, when they were working to approve our work plan for the year. So thank you, Vice Chair Evers, for bringing this to my attention. I'm glad to see that. So it's number 12. It's investigation of surf, volleyball, and skate parks, including a potential Moonlight Beach skate bowl. And like I mentioned, on May 21st, City Council directed the Parks and Rec Commission to investigate surf, volleyball, and skate parks, including a potential Moonlight Beach skate bowl, to better represent the prominence of these activities as part of the culture of Encinitas. So what I would like to first do is see what commissioners might be interested in participating in the ad hoc.
I would be interested in participating.
Fantastic. Anyone else?
I'm interested. I don't want to be the lead, though.
Commissioner Kimball, would you be interested in the lead position?
Is there only two of us?
There could be potentially more when we have a full complement of the
full quorum.
commission.
Sure.
And we can certainly change that.
We can, yeah, I'll take it until we find someone else to volunteer. Until we figure that out. But my kids all did those things, and so I actually was excited to see that, looking at it in a little more detail.
Well, thank you both for stepping up to take on the ad hoc. So, Manager Norgard, if you'd please indicate in the future that Commissioner Kimball will be our lead, and that Commissioner Capiello will be assisting. And we'll see if the other commissioners that are currently absent might want to participate as well in our next session. We'll go ahead and close out the work plan now. Again, thank you for reminding me that. I wasn't used to seeing it on there, so I'm happy that you caught that. Now, Manager Hamer, if you'd like to chat about recreation services, please.
Thank you, thank you. I wanted to announce that July is National Parks and Recreation Month. We will be celebrating with a proclamation from City Council presented here next Wednesday, June 25th at 6 p.m. We are welcoming you if you'd like to join us. It's a celebration, annual celebration of all that Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Arts achieves for the community of Encinitas. For summer upcoming events, we have many, many concerts, starting with the Music by the Sea, June 27th. Tremonto Music Festival is in July, the 18th through the 20th. And throughout the summer on the beach will be the Moonlight Beach Concerts. Those are July 13th and 27th, and August 10th and 24th. We also have events, the Sustainable Solutions Fair, Encinitas Community Park on June 22nd, and we'll have Dog Days of Summer on August 3rd in Encinitas Community Park. So we'll have presence at all these different locations. And I also wanted to ask if you could please make sure that you take the Age-Friendly Encinitas survey. It is, some people might think it's just for older adults, but it really is for everybody, all ages and all abilities. We just talked about how wonderful Scott Valley Park, the amenities that were featured for that, for Universal Playground, items like that, that can benefit an older adult, but can also benefit someone with special needs or perhaps somebody with a baby stroller. So the input is encouraged from everybody, and I can send that link later next week, or you can just go on the website. It's on encinitasca.gov/age-friendly-Encinitas. So we already have 400 surveys completed, but the more the better. It'll be open through August, and we're hoping to have over 1,000 because it's going to develop that action plan that will go to the City Council to really recommend, ways to make our spaces and places welcome and friendly for everybody. So thank you, and have a happy and healthy summer.
And I did take the survey, and I think it asked some great questions, and it's pretty easy to complete. So I certainly recommend doing it and sharing the link with friends in the community. So regarding the Sister City Delegates visit that I see on our commission calendar, is that a program that's actually ran through Parks, Rec, and Cultural Arts?
That program's ran with the committee, the volunteer committee, community committee that runs that. Nicole White, our recreation supervisor, will be organizing the events and the activities and the welcoming them, as well as the families and committee that have volunteered to host and engage with the students.
It would be nice if when she has her itinerary planned, if any of the public events might be shared with the commission in the event that they might want to experience it. I think I would definitely like to do that. So if you could share that with us when it becomes available, that would be great. Any questions or comments on the Parks and Rec operation reports? All righty. So let's go ahead and move forward. I don't think we have any commission member initiated agenda items. And then Same thing on future agenda items. I don't think we have any, so let's go ahead and just move on to commission reports or the roundtable, and we'll start at the far end and come on down.
I have nothing else to add tonight. Thanks.
I don't have anything else to add tonight.
I don't, well, I do. I have one comment, and that is if it's possible to get or to see what's upcoming within the Parks Department. Meaning tonight was very informational. I didn't know that this was in process, right? That this Leucadia Oaks plan was happening. So this is the first I've heard of it, and it was great to see that. But if there are down the road things coming, is there a place that you can kind of see a spreadsheet? Like these are things that are in process, being investigated. It's part of our mandate is to investigate things and look at it. I feel like I'm kind of missing one of those components as to accessing, what the parks are up to. So today was, a surprise, and if we are looking at things that a surf and skate stuff, is there already processes going on that people have started that we can look into and see where they're at and help prop them or invite them to speak, that sort of thing. So that's my comment. Thanks.
I would say on your new ad hoc that you're on, that there has been some communication between the gentleman that originally brought forward the idea of a skate bowl at Moonlight and city staff. So I'd recommend that the ad hoc meet with city staff to just get up to speed on that particular one. The surf aspect of it, again, chatting with city staff, a lot with regards to surf for us is just basically public access to the beaches. We, other than during the junior lifeguard type camps that we run through Recreation Services, we don't really have any program that the city does with regards to surf. That's the surf tends to be something that other organizations kind of run on their own on our Encinitas / state beaches. And then I guess the only other comment, and you probably already know this, but Manager Norgard posts the agenda on Wednesday or Thursday the week before. So if you click on it, it allows you to look at the agenda, and you could pull up the Leucadia Oaks Native Plant Demonstration Garden presentation just to get a little bit familiar with it prior to the meeting. So it only gives you a few days' notice, but I
appreciate that. I mean, I did look at the agenda, and I guess I was saying in a general sense. It sounds like they've been working on this for 2 years. I had no idea about that until I got the agenda last week, and so I can reach out to Manager Norgard and see, is there some, here's what's coming up, to be able to be aware of, to go talk to people, be better informed about this before we sit here and make recommendations on a week's notice. I guess that's my ultimate comment.
Good point. All right, so let's go ahead and move forward with Vice Chair Evers. Do you have any comments?
No, nothing for me. Thank you.
And Manager Norgard, did you happen to have time to? Okay, great, thank you. I kind of sent in the photo last minute, but one thing that I just wanted to kind of throw out when I was at EcoFest, I ended up connecting with a group that's here in Encinitas called Street Stewards, and what they do is they meet, I think, every second Saturday of the month, and they go out and do street cleanup. So they pick up trash along the right-of-way along streets, both residential and more urban areas. Here we were kind of working on cleaning up trash around San Diego Academy and some of the streets that kind of go around it. I know that we ended up picking up about 53 pounds of trash with the 11 of us that participated that day. Super nice, friendly people. They're looking for new people to volunteer with them, all in an effort of making Encinitas look as beautiful as it can, and to kind of deal with some of the trash that unfortunately we see show up. So their website is streetstewards.com. So if you're interested, they'll add you to a Google sheet that or a Google email list where they'll just shoot you an email with where they're going to be doing pickups that month. So great organization. They're looking for some funding for what they do, and I gave them some suggestions as to where to look. So super nice people and fun to hang out with for an hour. So just wanted to put it on your radar, and that's all I have. So with that, it's 7:14, and I'll go ahead and close the meeting. Thank you.